Hi again then guys, and welcome to another countdown list for Gran Turismo, but again not a conventional best to worst or worst to best countdown. This is actually the first continuation list that we've done based on last week's video. Last week, of course, we did the 20 best vehicles in terms of visual upgrades, or at least 20 of the best. And the response to that video was overwhelmingly positive. It had a ton of views within like a day or two, and I had some requests to make another selection of even more cars with great visual upgrades. So that's why we're here again. We've got another 10 cars which I would say have a really great selection of visual tuning options. If you haven't checked out the first video, there is of course a link down below and at the end of this video to do so. But for now, let's get straight into it. Kicking us off first of all is not necessarily an obvious choice, the Volvo C30, based in part on the Ford Focus ST. This is a car which you wouldn't necessarily expect to have fantastic visuals, but actually does have a pretty cool body kit and rear wing. Then next we have the Lotus Evora, another car which you'd probably expect to have some visual tuning, but maybe more in the way of custom size wings and maybe a subtle lip body kit if anything, but it's actually a pretty good looking car when you apply the visual tuning upgrades. You can also debadge the bonnet with the upgraded hood and kind of make your own Lotus Type 124 race car. Next up we have one of my personal favourite cars in the game, the kind of undervalued C5 generation Corvette Z6. In premium form, this car has some fantastic visual upgrades. You've got the obvious stuff like big racing rear wings, but even the flat floor kit on this vehicle looks fantastic. It gives the car one of the best looking rear diffusers in the game, and you can even have stuff like more subtle ducktail wings to work with rather than just the obvious over the top stuff. Then up next we have another car which I would say is a less obvious vehicle to have great tuning for, but in a similar style to the Mazda AZ1 Autozam actually does. The Suzuki Cappuccino, the premium model, has great visual upgrades in terms of body kits, rear wings, and you can even change the headlight surrounds in a very Need for Speed underground kind of way. Next up we have the first and also the only modern muscle car on this particular list, the Mustang Boss 302. It's got a great selection of body kits, some of which are more subtle, some are more racing inspired. You've got rear wing options and of course a flat floor which serves the purpose of performance as well as just looking good. Next up, a car which was requested a few times for the previous countdown, and a car which certainly does deserve to be here, the DC5 Honda Integra, in particular in premium form. You don't have a huge amount of upgrades to work with, but the ones which we do have are pretty cool. You've got a diffuser which serves the purpose of increasing performance rather than necessarily standing out from the crowd, but the body kit on the other hand really does. It makes the car much more aggressive and totally changes the visual signature that this vehicle has. Next up we have what I consider to be one of the best looking coupes you can buy these days, the Peugeot RCZ. The upgrades on this car are much more subtle than many others. The lip wings that you can put on the front end on the diffuser, the ducktail wing that you can put on the back, they're all quite understated compared to some of the other cars both on this list and the previous one. And speaking of understated visuals, this car doesn't really have them. It's the Nissan 300ZX, again in premium form. The visuals that you can change on this car are perhaps surprising, given that it's not an obvious choice of car to have, as far as Gran Turismo goes, a lot of tuning to work with, but you actually do. You've got an interesting selection of wings to work with, and also body kits, which, although aren't that extreme, can certainly change the silhouette of the car substantially. Moving on next to my personal favourite car, not just on the game but in real life, the Chiazzetta V16T. This car has a very Ferrari-esque selection of visual upgrades with a big integrated F40 style rear wing and a body kit which is very big, very beefy and pretty intimidating. and last but certainly not least, another vehicle which you wouldn't think of first necessarily for visual upgrades, but it does have a very good selection of them, the Alfa Romeo Mito. Not only does it have great wings and body kits to work with, but you can even change the detailing of the car with things like chrome around the headlights and the windows, and even blacking out the grille. But that's it overall for my selection of another 10 cars with great visual upgrades, and there are certainly even more if you wanted to hunt them down. But that's it overall for this particular countdown. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.